Looking back at 2014 and the big legal headlines like the 6-week search for University of Virginia student Hannah Graham and the arrest of Jessie Matthew in her murder. Graham was last seen on surveillance video in the early hours of September 13th, shortly after leaving friends. September 20, Jessie Matthews is named a person of interest visiting the Charlottesville Police Department. He sped away very fast, endangering other drivers, police say. September 24th, he's arrested in Galveston, Texas. And finally, October 18th, Hannah Graham's remains are found and later identified. October 31st, Jessie Matthew was in court in a sexual assault case from 2005, and now he's set for a bond hearing in the Graham case on March 26th, 2015. Let's bring in now Doug Burns. He's a former prosecutor, and John Manuelian, a criminal defense attorney. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
Doug, I want to start with you.
Thank you.
As you well both know, thanks guys, that Jessie Matthews has been charged with abduction with intent to defile. Doug, what's the likely outcome in this case?
Well, Arthel, when you have more than one case, it introduces a different dynamic and it makes it a lot harder for the defense. In other words, what I'm saying is if you got the Hannah Graham case and then you have the case that you referenced a minute ago from 2005. So a big part of this is going to be sorted out. But to answer your question, this is going to be a long process, actually, because you're going to figure out, which case goes first, ostensibly, those type of issues. And I think it's going to be a difficult outcome. I think, I don't think it looks all that good for the defense, however. In the other case you mentioned, there is DNA evidence related to a cigar butt and a T-shirt, so that's fairly strong. And then in the Hannah Graham, it's less clear exactly where we stand from an evidentiary standpoint. But again, they're facing at least 2, possibly more cases. Going to be hard for the defense.
Really? So, John, let me hear your side then as a defense attorney. Is there a defense for this Jessie Matthews character?
Well, I agree with Doug. I think each case has to be independently examined. And in this case, with the Graham case, they're going to hold a preliminary hearing where they're going to determine whether there's probable cause, which means they got to show a link between the defendant and Heather Graham. What was the actual connection and the murder? So I believe, based on what I'm reading and what I'm hearing, there's got to be some sort of DNA or some sort of witness account that corroborates that he actually killed her. And the troubling part is going to be for Herman Matthew is that they need to establish that he sexually intended to defile her. That's going to be very hard to prove unless there's physical evidence. But at this point in time, it looks like they have enough evidence to get him for the murder.
So if that's the case, what sort of sentencing might he face?
Well, he's looking at life, obviously, if he's convicted of murder with or without the possibility of parole. However, with the 2005 case, that may actually play into whether or not he will actually be released if he's convicted on both counts. It's highly unlikely that he will be released at that point.
Okay, let's talk about this one. Another case resurfacing dramatically this year, to say the least. It's the penalty phase retrial for Jodi Arias in Arizona. Of course, she was convicted of killing her ex-boyfriend, but the jury was hung on a penalty. So as you guys both know, the prosecutors are again asking for the death penalty in a case that's seen, one sensational development after another. We're talking about tweeting from live tweeting inside the courtroom, interruptions. Just a very bizarre trial. Judge Sherry Stevens in charge there. So what's going to happen here in this case, Doug?
Well, you got to set this up a little. It was 8-4 for the death penalty. I say that maybe people think I'm coming at that different. It wasn't 11-1. So the point is, I've expressed the opinion in the past, and I stand by it, that I'm a little surprised that the prosecutors would put these kind of resources to redo the whole thing. What's going to happen is this is going to take another probably, 6-8 weeks roughly. I think my prediction, again, I don't have a crystal ball, is you may see another deadlock, in which case, by the way, there is no third chance. That's it. Yeah. And I think ultimately the way this will come out is life imprisonment, either with some possibility of parole or without. If I had to guess, I would say without.
Right, because, John, as you know, if the jury in this second time around, if they can't decide on a sentencing, as Doug said, she's going to either sit in jail forever or perhaps with the possibility of parole after, I think, 25 years. Right. So how do you see this playing out?
I think Doug's right. I think it's going to be much harder to do because Jodi has had time to think about how to humanize herself. Remember, Jodi has a right to take the stand and discuss why the jury should spare her life.
Yeah, which she has already done.
And she gets to do again.
Yeah.
And she gets to do again. And this time the difference is, Arthel, that the defense attorneys could bring in witnesses that they didn't do in the first round, specifically her mother, her father, all these witnesses that didn't testify that could actually come and implore the jury to spare their daughter's life. And I think if they do that, if they play their cards right, they may be actually able to deflect the sentencing of death in this case.
All right, we'll see how that plays out. That court went on break December 18th, and they're going to resume January 5th, which is Monday. Let's talk about this one now. Amanda Knox. I mean, who can forget this? The American foreign exchange student. She spent nearly 4 years in an Italian prison for killing her roommate. She was set free on appeal and came home. And this year, the Italian courts retried her, and she was found guilty again. Well, now the judicial system is being accused of framing Knox and her boyfriend, Doug. So what's going to happen here?
Well, this is really an extradition question more than anything else, because in other words, she's here in the United States and you have all of these legal proceedings going on in Italy. And the question is, can she be extradited from the U.S.? My answer is very unlikely for two reasons. Reason one is that in the treaty, it gives the U.S. the right to decline to extradite if she's been found not guilty. And in Italy, it's much different than in the U.S. In the U.S., we simply analyze cases for whether there were legal mistakes on an appeal, not guilt or innocence. In Italy, that's not the case. You hit it right on the head. She was found not guilty in one of those appellate proceedings, and the point is that counts, in my opinion, as double jeopardy. The other thing, real quick, is most extradition treaties allow the U.S. or the requested country to decline to extradite their own citizens, and this is a textbook case for that.
So then, John, what do you think is going to happen? And if, in fact, Amanda Knox is found to be, that the U.S. won't grant extradition back to Italy, what happens to her? She just continues to live her life as a free woman here in Seattle or wherever she chooses?
Well, let me start by saying I'm going to respectfully disagree with Doug. I don't think there was a final judgment on the merits. The appellate court didn't find her not guilty. They actually annulled the guilty verdict, which is basically a set aside. Right. And then the appellate court then reinstated the guilty verdict. So in my opinion, I don't think there's a double jeopardy issue. And if there's not a double jeopardy issue, then the issue becomes whether or not the United States is going to actually extradite her. We've done that before in prior occasions in murder cases. And even if we don't, there's going to be an issue of Interpol. She's not going to be able to travel to any country without the threat of Interpol picking her up and extraditing her. So to that extent, I think that she has some legal problems ahead of her. And again, in my opinion, I don't think there was a final judgment on the merits. So she is in danger of being extradited, in my opinion.
But John, let me jump in there. So I want you to, either one of you can tell me, what would it take for her attorneys to convince the U.S. judicial system to not extradite her? And I want to clarify what you said, that if she may have trouble traveling internationally. Why so?
Well, let me just say quick.
Because
go ahead, John. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, Doug. Go ahead. It's your turn.
No, I was just going to say, John is right. I mean, it's not crystal clear whether or not this extradition point I made, that's within the discretion of the State Department and the U.S. government. I mean, I'm just saying, in my view, they may take the position that it's double jeopardy. As far as traveling, the point is she'll have a tough time leaving this country, possibly. And by the way, there was a sensational case where the physician who kept DEA agent Kiki Camarena alive in Mexico was kidnapped out of the country. You have that issue as well. So, I mean, she's far from just completely scot-free. I just gave you my sort of crystal ball prediction that I do not think she'll be extradited, and I do stand by that, but I understand John's analysis. So,
John, you get the final word. If she's not extradited, then what happens?
Well, she's going to have a very difficult life, because what's going to happen is Interpol is going to be alerted, and she's not going to be able to travel to South America, to Europe, or any country that has Interpol looking for her. So she's going to have to remain in the United States or go to countries that won't extradite her.
Okay, John Manuelian, Doug Burns, Happy New Year, and sorry for the bumping heads. That was my fault. I should have picked one.
Not at all. Happy New Year, Arthur.
See you guys.
All right.
Thank you.